Now that was a great trailer, loaded with Star Wars Easter eggs and teasing a much bigger story to come. Welcome back to ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed in the first full trailer for The Mandalorian and Grogu. Now, before we dive into this trailer, I want to briefly talk about the Super Bowl commercial for this movie, which at the time annoyed myself and other fans because we really wanted this full trailer. Now that commercial was apparently an original scene that's not in the movie and cost $7 million to make, and it was actually directed by Jon Favreau. It featured Din and Grogu on a wagon train pulled by Tauntauns, that's the animal that Luke and Han ride in The Empire Strikes Back, and it was a tribute/parody to the old Budweiser Clydesdale commercials from Super Bowls of yore. Now we are going to be talking about that trailer and this one on our live stream later today, and man is there a lot to talk about. So we start with this shot of these X-Wings in front of a sunset. Now this is probably on planet Adelphi, where the New Republic Rangers had an outpost in The Mandalorian Season 3. Now this shot is clearly evocative of the famous helicopter shot from Apocalypse Now. Favreau previously referenced this film in Season 1 with the stormtrooper helmets on pikes, emulating Kurtz's fortress from that film. But this is more than just a visual reference. Apocalypse Now was written by John Milius, who went to USC with George Lucas. And George was going to direct Apocalypse Now, and he was planning it for years, and then his friend Francis Ford Coppola took over the project instead. And this trailer also begins with a variation of the classic Star Wars theme. And this is to remind us, and casual viewers, that Star Wars is back in theaters after a 7-year absence, which seems like a lot, but I had to wait 14 years between seeing Star Wars movies in the theater.
That is the asylum that raised us.
Then we see the landing gears of an ST-70 assault ship in a shot that's reminiscent of Top Gun's opening sequence. Then an astromech droid pulls into the foreground. Now this could be R2-D2, but it's actually hard to tell if the coloring matches. Then again, R2 was actually black and white in the combat sequences in A New Hope because his blue parts were chroma keyed out. So who's to say if this is him or not? And then we see the full ship, the Razor Crest II. Now you'll remember Din Djarin actually had this same model ship in the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian before the Empire blew it up.
I have dreamed a dream. But now that dream is gone from me.
In the Book of Boba Fett, Din got a replacement, an N1 Naboo starfighter, which of course first appeared in The Phantom Menace. But this ship choice always bothered me because Grogu was so exposed in that glass canopy, but also, it's just not a practical ship for a bounty hunter who has to deliver people to their contracts. So Jon Favreau confirmed that Din bought the same model ship, which is both awesome and way more practical. Now this ship predates the Empire, back to the Old Republic, so it doesn't have transponders that the New Republic or Imperial forces can trace. And notice that in the cockpit, we see the same gear shift knob from the original ship. Now when Din first captured Grogu, the little guy kept wanting to play with this knob until he finally gave it to him as a gift. And this is the only part of the original ship that Din saved from the wreckage. But did you also know that this is an homage to Lucas's second feature film, American Graffiti? John Milner's car had a custom gear shift knob that he gave to a young girl named Carol, and the two of them had a similar relationship to Din and Grogu. They were both a seasoned, hard-edged man riding around with an innocent young person. And now, oh shoot, guys, it is lunchtime right now.
Oh, thank goodness. You know, if I don't eat at least every hour, I get peckish.
Oh man, this is great. Grilled filet mignon and creamy Parmesan shrimp with broccolini and squash. So good. God, it tastes like it's right off the grill.
Oh, thanks. You really shouldn't have.
And guys, by the way, my lunch here is a delicious, nutritious meal from Factor. They're the sponsor of this video.
Do you say what now?
Guys, I love Factor. They are one of my all-time favorite sponsors of our channel. They deliver fresh, never frozen, chef-crafted meals straight to my doorstep. Then you just microwave and they're ready to eat in 2 minutes. See, Factor is perfect for me because I never have time to stop and eat healthy during the day. I'm a terrible cook and I am really bad about eating right. I tend to just grab whatever is laying around. And this year, I really want to be healthy. I want to get in shape. And Factor is a key part of how I've organized my diet. They have more than 100 rotating meal options, and most meals deliver more than 30 grams of protein. They even have new high protein options, including short ribs, salmon burger, and bison sausage. These are foods I would have never tried on my own, but Factor makes it easy, delicious, and nutritious.
But none for me. Ah, jeez.
So I highly recommend you head to factor75.com or click our link below and use our code to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's factor75.com to get 50% off plus free breakfast for an entire year. Now the offer is only valid for new Factor customers with our code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchases. Click that link and try today. You will not regret it. Now back to what I was saying. So this badass moment is diminished when Grogu button mashes.
Hey, never touch the buttons.
So this is probably a good time to take a step back and give you guys a reminder on Mando Season 3 and where we left off. I mean, after all, that season dropped 3 years ago. Mind-boggling. Season 2 ended with Luke Skywalker taking Grogu away to train, but then in the show The Book of Boba Fett, Grogu decided to return to Din Djarin. Then the two of them helped Boba Fett to retake Tatooine from gangsters called the Pike Syndicate. Now Mandalorian Season 3 begins with Din dipping himself in the sacred waters beneath Mandalore, which redeems his honor so he can rejoin his people. And while all of this is happening, we briefly see that there is an Imperial conspiracy inside the New Republic, with former Imperials using their new influence to carry out the Imperial agenda. Din and Grogu then help a Mandalorian named Bo-Katan to unite the Mandalorian factions and retake their homeworld from the Empire. And this is where they discover that Moff Gideon was making Force-sensitive clones of himself. It's also revealed that Gideon was part of an Imperial Shadow Council. These are the highest-ranking Imperial officers that have not been captured after the war ended about 7 years earlier. Now, they specifically mention that they are waiting for the return of a single brilliant Imperial officer, brilliant tactician, and he did return to the galaxy in the show Ahsoka Season 1. And this is all supposed to be building up toward a team-up movie created by Lucasfilm president Dave Filoni. But there have been rumors that this movie's existence greatly depends on the box office performance of this film. Basically, if this film flops, we may not get more of the Mandoverse. Now, this war against Thrawn is probably what Sigourney Weaver is warning us about here.
It's about preventing another war.
So then we see a city, but this is probably not Coruscant. This is likely the moon Nar Shaddaa, which orbits the Hutt homeworld of Nal Hutta. Now, Nal Hutta is a dark, swampy planet, so most of the actual criminal activity happens on their moon. Now, the guy working in this food booth is an Ardenian, just like Jon Favreau's character in Solo. And by the way, does his voice sound familiar?
For this price, I'll tell you whatever you want.
He is voiced by the great Martin Scorsese, which in a roundabout way is a really great deep-cut Star Wars Easter egg. Scorsese directed the terrific film Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, which featured a waitress named Flo. And Flo was the name of this droid waitress in the diner in Attack of the Clones. But it gets better. Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore was edited by one of the editors of the original Star Wars, Marcia Lucas, who is the ex-wife of George Lucas. And as noted by the Arabesh sign, Scorsese is playing a character named Hugo, the name of his 2011 3D feature film. The menu here reads Flat Eat Fry with side and with Osos, and also bestseller. And on the far left, this reads Blue Soda, and this is your mom. Now notice that Din paid with a New Republic coin, reminding us that they are still running the show in the galaxy, just doing a really bad job of it. But when Din says,
I'm looking for a Hutt,
Hugo closes up his food truck right away. Now, the Hutts have been a criminal powerhouse in the galaxy for centuries, but at this point in time, they are in a state of wane. They used to be ruled by a Hutt council, but then Darth Vader killed all of them except for Jabba the Hutt, which is why he's running the show in Return of the Jedi. After Jabba's death, his major domo Bib Fortuna took control, but then he was supplanted by Boba Fett. Fett then had to fend off threats to his new empire, including the aforementioned Pike Syndicate, but also Jabba's cousin, the Twins. So now they are the powerhouse in the Hutt crime family, and they look to be the main antagonists of this film. And then Mando enters a Hutt palace. Note their insignia on the door here, and it's guarded by enforcer droids at either end. He's brought in for an audience with the twins, very much like how Jabba the Hutt had his own throne room that placed him as the center of attention. Now the Hutties on their pedestal, as far as we can tell, is mostly gibberish, but this text reads ancestral. And we also see them, as Din narrates, gangsters. And then, for war criminals, we cut to an in-person meeting of the Imperial Shadow Council. Now notice they are in a remote mountain location, guarded by the same snowtroopers that we saw in The Empire Strikes Back. Now, as for where they are, it would be ironic if this was Hoth, like now the Imperials are the rebels who have to hide out. And this could also be the Mythian Divide, which we saw in the show Andor. It's where another Imperial Council had a meeting where they decided how to decimate the planet of Gorman. But we also saw a similar meeting on the planet of Eriadu, homeworld of Grand Moff Tarkin, and we saw that in the show The Bad Batch. Now the leader of this council was also one of the Shadow Council members that we saw in Season 3 of The Mandalorian.
Live the Empire.
But look, I doubt if any of this is going to be too big of a part of this movie. All of that is likely going to be the focus of the Dave Filoni team-up movie, where Mando, Boba Fett, and Ahsoka are supposed to all team up and form like the Star Wars Avengers and fight Thrawn. Now that film will be loose adaptation of the very first expanded universe story, the Thrawn trilogy by Timothy Zahn. It also looks like Mando is going to capture these guys, but more on that in a bit. And you guys know how much we love Star Wars here at the channel, especially Andor, which is why we love designing these Star Wars parody shirts. Of course, we have Doug as Grogu, our classic original trilogy, Fight the Empire, I Have Friends Everywhere, Stay on Target, The Apprentice Lives, and many more. Links for these are below, and thanks for shopping with us. And then we see Mando getting a card with no face. This is a card from the game Sabacc. It's a card game that's sort of like poker, and it's how Han won the Millennium Falcon. It's also really hard to play in Star Wars Outlaws. Now, he is likely getting this from Colonel Ward, who is Sigourney Weaver's character in this film. Remember, Mando Season 3 ended with Din basically being on permanent retainer from the New Republic and settling down on a ranch with Grogu. But it's interesting that she is giving him paper cards and not bounty pucks like we saw in Season 1. This could be because these targets are so secretive that they can't leave any kind of digital trace. And then Din seems to enter the same council chamber that we saw before, blasting ahead with his flamethrower, using one trooper's gun to shoot the other, and then firing 2 shots into this guy with his pistol.
Always double tap.
Exactly. On Adelphi, we see a U-wing landing. Now, we didn't see these in the original trilogy, but they were often used by Rebels during the war. We saw them in Andor, Rogue One, and Rebels. Then Grogu uses the Force to tear apart an Imperial mouse droid, and notice it's white, indicating that this is probably on that same snow planet. And then these battle droids run past a massive gate. Note the teeth on it look like the gates of Jabba's palace on Tatooine. Now, this is likely now Hutt, and the Hutts are using droids because they've lost muscle over the years, especially after Boba Fett took over their operation on Tatooine. Now, the door is exposing a bunch of launch tubes that fire atmospheric fighter craft, similar to the security pods that we see on Cloud City in Empire Strikes Back. Later, we see one of these crashing, probably meaning that they entered the atmosphere to pursue Din after he escapes the palace. And then we see Embo, a bounty hunter from the Clone Wars series. It looks like he's approaching the homestead where Din and Grogu were living at the end of Season 3. So Din would be making like a litany of powerful enemies by running around the galaxy and doing the bidding of the New Republic. Now, Embo could be here to capture Grogu, which would separate Din and Grogu for the entire movie, or more likely, he sneaks up on the house, but Din and Grogu take him out pretty easily. He could be the little fish at the start of the movie, and then the Hutts are introduced as the bigger fish that they have to overcome. Case in point, a droid removes Din's helmet.
Oh no!
Oh no is right. In Din's culture, they are forbidden to remove their helmets or be seen by others.
The way.
Now, he did take off his helmet twice in Season 2, which is why he had to purify himself in the waters of Lake Minnetonka in Season 3. Although, now the Mandalorians rule Mandalore and they have relit their Eternal Forge, maybe this isn't such a big deal. Like maybe Din can nip over to his homeworld and get his honor restored really quick. Now later we see that he's been brought before the twins, who might be the people who separate him from Grogu. At least I think they're going to be separated because that's like the most powerful narrative tool they can use in this film. We love it when these two are together, so of course they should separate them. They say,
You will suffer, and then it will be his turn.
and it's super weird to hear the Hutts speak English, right? Like, I am so against this. The Hutts would never speak Galactic Basic. They would think that it is beneath them, which is why the language of the underworld is always Huttese. Like, I hated it when Zero the Hutt spoke Basic.
My most trusted of assassins has fought.
Hopefully, this is just in this for the trailer. Now, this is where we get to the sappy part of the trailer, where Mando talks about protecting the little guy. We get a more cinematic, classical version of the Mandalorian theme. Then Grogu straps on the armor he earned in Season 3. The chest plate is a mud horn, the sigil of the clan he formed with Din, and on his wrist are those little darts that he used to embarrass the other kids during his Season 3 training. This amazing shot from the first trailer of Grogu riding with these Anzellans. Now these are, of course, the same species as the best character from the sequel trilogy. I can never hate that movie 100% because it gave us Babu Frick. Now this is likely on Nevarro where Din and Grogu live. In Season 3, the Anzellans built Grogu a walking battle armor out of IG-11's body. And then Pedro narrates,
The kid will live centuries beyond me.
which is true. I mean, Yoda lived for almost 900 years. And to underscore this, we see Grogu walking in a stick in what looks like a swamp. And this is to just subtly remind us of Yoda. And then he's meditating in a forest. So maybe in this film, he becomes greater attuned to the Force. If he and Din are separated, then maybe he can reach out with the Force to find him. In fact, that would be a cool twist, if he has to save Din when it's usually the other way around. And it's also cool how the meditating shot is when Din says, "Live beyond me," because the Force is eternal and will outlast everyone in the galaxy. And as he says,
I won't always be around to protect him.
he scoops Grogu out of the water, which is probably not a reference to this scene in Moonlight, but it does remind me of that film. And this takes us to another callback to the Clone Wars. This super jacked Hutt is Rada the Hutt, son of Jabba. Now in the Clone Wars movie, Ahsoka's very first mission with Anakin was to rescue Rada.
Rota, mi pedonki.
Here, he's played by Jeremy Allen White, and I guess it would have been a little too on the nose to have him play the chef in the food truck. So I'm wondering if this arena fight is being run by the twins on now Hutt or Nar Shaddaa. Like maybe they have forced Jabba's son into gladiator combat so he can never challenge their claim to his dad's empire. Notice the arena doors are sealed shut with the red blast shield, which can only be disabled with a key card that you get from a Pike Informer on a Kiva.
What?
Sorry, I am playing a lot of Star Wars Outlaws lately. Rada is wielding two Gamorrean guard axes that of course we saw Jabba's guards use in Return of the Jedi. But Din then uses his grappling hook to pull down his arm, make him release the axe, and then swing behind him, getting ready for a good strangling, which is exactly how his dad died in Jedi. But I'm gonna guess that Rada's next move is to cut the cable with his other axe to prove to the audience that he is not like his papa. And then this old alien in a rocking chair asks,
Are you scared?
now this to me looks like the swamps of Now Hutt, like we're in the bayou or something. And this scene is the main reason why I think Din and Grogu become separated. He wouldn't be asking Grogu if he was afraid if his dad was around. This scene is also a callback to when Luke told Yoda that he wasn't afraid.
You will be. You should be.
And then Din, with no helmet, is facing off with a dragon snake. Now we saw these in the Clone Wars, like when Obi-Wan fought one while he was searching for Zero the Hutt. Now because Din is facing him without his helmet, this is probably after the Hutts stripped away his mask. So this monster is probably the answer to the Rancor that Jabba kept in his palace in Jedi. Basically, every Hutt needs a monster they can feed people to. Maybe we'll even see a Beastmaster who cares for the snake, you know, like Maliki in Jedi.
Who was that?
That was the poor guy who cried over the Rancor. In the book Tales from Jabba's Palace, we find out that Jabba originally planned for the Rancor to fight a crate dragon that day, and Malakili was really worried about the Rancor, but still, he washed his belly for that special occasion, and then it was the day the Rancor died. Now that is the kind of deep-cut, useless Star Wars lore that we offer here at ScreenCrush, folks. And then we have the return of live-action Zeb, voiced by Steve Blum. Now Zeb is a Lasat, a species that was nearly wiped out by the Empire. His design was actually based on one of Ralph McQuarrie's original designs for Chewbacca. And on the show Rebels, Zeb does fulfill kind of a Chewbacca role. I should also note that Dave Filoni's Thrawn movie is probably going to be a sequel of sorts to his show Star Wars Rebels. He's slowly been introducing all of those characters into live action, and so probably they're going to face off against Grand Admiral Thrawn. Zeb takes down these stormtroopers in a hallway, and it is so freaking cool to see this character in live action. Like every character on the show Rebels is great.
Even Ezra.
Except Ezra.
No, not you, Seamus.
There's a brief shot of stormtroopers in a speeder hitting a blunt object, which could be a force push from Grogu. The desert planet here kind of looks like Tatooine, so maybe Din goes there to get help from Boba Fett against the twins. Remember, Boba Fett now runs Jabba's former criminal empire on that planet. Or maybe the twins have already pushed in on Boba's empire and Din has shown up to help. Now, this is a reach, but this could also be Jakku, which is the planet of the last battle of the Galactic Civil War, and it's where Rey lives in The Force Awakens. Like, there's an outside chance we could actually see young Rey in this movie. Or hell, in this time period, Ochi could be a character in the film. He's the assassin that killed Rey's parents, which could have happened around this time. I'm not really sure. Hell, we might even see young Lando and Luke searching for Ochi like they did in the novel Shadow of the Sith. I seriously doubt any of that will happen, but that is one thing I really like about this particular era of Star Wars. The Force Awakens begins with the new empire suddenly there, but these shows and movies can show us the gradual rise of the First Order. And then we see Din in a cave, probably on Now Hutt, leaping from a battle droid that he just disabled. And then there's this really sweet double Easter egg. The Arabesh above this door reads Weather Apollo. This is a nod to the late great Carl Weathers, who played Apollo Creed in the Rocky films. He also played Greef Karga in all 3 seasons of the original show and directed a few episodes of the series. Now the creature that bursts through first is a Mantelian Savrip.
That looks familiar.
That's because all of these creatures appeared on the Djarik holo chessboard in A New Hope and then in The Force Awakens. And funny side note, in The Force Awakens, the board turned on and finished the move that was started in A New Hope. So I guess that means that nobody played that game for like 33 years. And then a cute little baby Rodian flees the scene with his mom, giving Grogu a new action vehicle, a jet-powered pram that he can ride in a battle. So I love that Grogu is like a proper teammate for Din now. He's not just a hopeless baby. He can use the Force. He can fight.
And he can crow.
Exactly. And the tag of the trailer shows Din taking away Grogu's snacks. And remember, Grogu eyeballed these same cookies from a kid back in season 2. And then he steals them and throws up during combat right afterwards. And also notice that you can see a little bit of his Beskar chainmail. See, Din brought this to him as a gift in the Book of Boba Fett. And remember, Grogu chose this armor over a lightsaber, which is how he declared that he wanted to be with Din Djarin instead of training as a Jedi Knight. So guys, that's the trailer. I am very excited about this movie. Like, the last trailer was a little meh, the Super Bowl trailer was a disappointment, but this one shows the scale of the film. And I'm just glad that we're back in this part of the Star Wars galaxy again. I still wish this was a show, but the movie looks great. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, where you can at me on Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, or subscribe to me on Substack, or find me on our free-to-join Discord server. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.